that's a lot of the times, a lot of us, where even though they might all signs point to no, I still want to try and see if this one person, and in all fairness, I get it. See if this one person actually meets, the criteria of has all these social status markers and is a great person.
Is this person actually independent, or are they demonstrating these really hyper individualistic traits that might be indicative of avoidance or an anxious attachment that's leading them to maybe puff up a little bit? Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
And it's Emilia.
Welcome to another episode of Evolve Ventures, where we're helping growth minded humans evolve by breaking one limiting belief at a time. We hope you enjoyed the last episode, number 282, What to Do When Your Family Won't Change. For today, 283, Motivation Monday, Don't Get Fooled by These Red Flags. Very punny since today's April Fool's Day.
Mhm.
We're not trying to be fooled out here in these streets. You know what I'm saying?
Don't be a fool.
So
Definitely. Don't
corny.
be a
That was
fool.
so corny. Don't be a fool. So, what we're going to dive into today are three of the biggest things that we see and that we've experienced. Red flags that end up getting overlooked because on the outside they look good. But when you really take
Mhm.
a look at them and when you dive deeper in, they're actually red flags that should be like that we want to watch out for and pay attention to. This is
Yeah.
something that in the past I really, really had a hard time with. I struggled being able to identify the difference between traits that were like they looked good until you actually dove in and you're like, ooh,
Mm.
okay. So the truth is, what this really is whatever. And what the reason that happened so often to me was because of that deep need to be in a relationship. I didn't give it enough
Mhm.
time to really see these traits. I didn't give it enough time. And so many of us do this. We don't give
Yeah.
it enough time to play out and really see, okay, what is this actually, though? What is this actually going to lead to? What does this actually mean? Okay, maybe it looks
Yeah.
good on the surface, but when you take the surface layers away, what's really underneath? So,
Yeah.
that is what we're going to be diving into today. What are the three red flags that we do not want you getting fooled by? The very first one is one that I struggled with so significantly. This is one of the ones that I really got tripped up by. Independence versus avoidance is what I labeled it as. A lot of my exes did a really good job when we first met of making it seem like they were super independent. They had their stuff
Mhm.
going for them. They knew what they wanted. They, they had their whole life figured out and they didn't need anybody else. Later on, as the relationship evolved, as the relationship grew, as we got closer together, the
Mm.
truth was this wasn't independence, this was hyper individualism. And in all
Mhm.
actuality, this was a lot of avoidance. These were avoidant and anxious patterns that made them, number one, either puffer fish, so like puff up and only show certain traits to make themselves look better, and then
Mhm.
avoidance, like avoiding emotions, avoiding difficult conversations, avoiding some of these really important factors that made them maybe look like they had their stuff together and made them
Mhm.
look like they knew what was going on, but in all reality they were really struggling with emotional intelligence, emotional expression, emotional maturity, and all of these other things. So number 1, is this
Yeah.
person actually independent, or are they
Mhm.
demonstrating these really hyper individualistic traits that might be indicative of avoidance or an anxious attachment that's leading them to maybe puff up a little bit?
1,000%. And so many people get caught in that trap. Number two really revolves around when you have someone, and by large and fault of our human nature, we love it, it is really when it comes down to status. So a lot of us might get swept off our feet when we go on a date or when we start kind of creeping, for lack of better words, on someone's social media, and they seem to have all of the social status markers that really build them on a high tier. For example, I have a client in mind and also another friend who that was something that really checked the boxes for them, if you will, with making sure that they have the car, the nice
Mm.
apartment, they have the, everything that one would deem as social status markers that put them in the upper echelons of other people that they otherwise could have dated, right? They got the fancy watch, they got the nice belt, they got the nice clothes, the nice, charisma with their
Mm,
words,
mm,
they're really
mm,
good with
mm.
people. Yeah, all those things where it's like, yeah, I want to spend my time with them. Unfortunately, though, what a lot of people experience with people who are really, really focused in on strictly just playing that game, the social status game, the unfortunate downside that a lot of people experience and get fooled by is that those people, those types of people, have that's a giant mask for their insecurity and for the lack of inner development, emotional maturity, and emotional intimacy that's on the inside in our inner world. So I have, for example, a client in mind who she's a conscious single, she's in the dating world, and she's, on the prowl for her for her
On
OG,
the
for
hunt.
her on the hunt for her bae. And I'm so proud of her because she's come so far. And she started, seeing this guy, and she had matched with someone. And initially when she was kind of in that information gathering phase that a lot of us will go in when we're considering a
Mhm.
prospect in an intimate relationship, she started to kind of review his Instagram. And one of the things that really was a red flag for her that she and I were talking through, and she had thought it was an insecurity of hers, so she was gaslighting herself, but really
Mm.
come to find out a couple of weeks later, and even on that coaching call that we had, was an intuitive pull that this guy ain't it. He had all the social markers. He was tall, dark, and handsome. She said he was beautiful and this and that. And while he had the look all put together, the way his follower count was really concerning for her. A lot of not so, shall we say, um, positive influences for the social media feed. So I'll let your imagination run wild with what that might look like. And so, yeah, Bianca's cracking up because I'm trying to be very politically correct when it comes to that. But you guys know, if you were to get in a room with someone that you're dating and then you see their friends or the people that they surround themselves with, you would probably cringe at the people that he is surrounding himself with on the social media feed. And for her, that was a big red flag. So don't get fooled. I think a lot of us will give, especially people who have low self worth, will give people the benefit of the doubt, even when it comes to social media feeds and whatnot. But
Mm.
that's the thing that I just want to be mindful of. Like, she got fooled because it was like just constantly giving the benefit of the doubt, even though she was more aware of this now more than ever. Her intuition was right, and she wanted to learn the hard way. And that's a lot of the times, a lot of us, where even though they might all signs point to no, I still want to try and see if this one person, and in all fairness, I get it. See if this one person actually
Yeah.
meets, the criteria of has all these social status markers and is a great person. That's why when people look at us, Bianca, it's like, you can't be all of what you guys are. You can't be virtuous. You can't be this. You can't be all of that together. And it's like, no, but we are the exception. So come look at our behind the scenes. We're a little weird and a little quirky, but like that's the fun aspect of it. So that's number two, the social
I just want
status.
to make
Who is
sure.
in your life? Go ahead.
Yeah. I also just want to make sure that I say not everybody who has a flashy social media is, you know, underdeveloped behind the scenes. What we're saying
Yes.
is this person's one redeeming quality the fact that they have all of these things? Is that the only thing that they talk about? Is that the
Yeah.
only thing that is really making them
Hmm.
seem so incredible to you? And the only way you'll know that is by actually getting in their life and
Yeah.
seeing the truth behind the scenes, because every single one of us knows social media is fake. It is all fake. Nobody shows their real life. Nobody shows the reality of what's actually going on. So, yeah, someone might seem amazing on social media, but then you really see what their life actually looks like. And yeah, maybe
Yeah.
they have a beautiful car and a gorgeous house, but they're also $100,000 in debt. And
Mm,
all of that went on their credit card that they're struggling
mhm.
to pay off. So, just be mindful of these things. Yes, a lot of people who their entire life is just the flashy, a lot of them aren't super developed, but that's not to say a blanket statement. Every single person who has a booming social media and who has a
Mhm,
really big like social presence, let's say, is that because that's not accurate, it's not true.
mhm.
But you have to be mindful of recognizing the difference, and again, you can't do that unless you take enough time to do it, which kind of goes into the third one, and I know this was yours and I'll make sure that you say it, but the halo effect. So you labeled it the halo horn effect. I got
Yeah.
so caught up in the halo effect with my previous partners. It's not even
Mhm.
funny. I put them on a pedestal. I got
Yeah.
so wrapped up in the perception of what they were, and I was so excited. And then you really see behind the scenes, and once they come off the pedestal, and it's like, oh my God, this is really what your life is. This is really who you are. And
Yeah.
this isn't to insult anybody. This is more of me kind of like patting myself on the hand like no, no, because of my tendency to not look at these things and then to get
Right.
swept up in it.
And that's perfectly normal. And honestly, biology works a little bit against us when it comes to that, because that's what we call and we've referred to in past episodes as the infatuation stage. When you first meet someone and let's say they are checking all the boxes, we get whoosh flood with a ton of emotions because the meaning and the narratives that we're building. Oh, well, I can see myself doing X with this person. Oh, they're into art. I'm into art. Oh my God, there's this awesome show, blah, 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 and insert the just running narrative of what could be, right? And so we naturally build that halo effect. And for our listeners, that is just the rose colored glasses. We build it into our visual perception of that person and they end up on a pedestal. And what's unfortunate is that the people who get fooled by that is what ends up happening is you start to get closer and closer to that person's life and you start to realize they're all not as chalked up to what you and your narrative and the perception built up in that infatuation stage or with those rose colored glasses that had lasted beyond the infatuation stage. So what happens then, and this is what happens, is people end up getting so close to that now they start to gaslight themselves and not actually see the reality of what that person is. I have a distinct relationship in mind that I observed and got to understand. I know there's a lot of people who have experienced this where, and even myself, I got caught in one of these cycles where because of this, actually all three of these, right? Hyper independence, actually avoidant. Um, the social status seemed to have power, seemed to have all these things that were so heart opening. And then that built up a halo effect. What ended up happening is I got closer to this person. And in the example that I'm thinking of, this person got closer to their partner. This partner could do no wrong. It doesn't matter how off they were with their rocker or how abusive they were with their terminology and the way in which they spoke to this partner. Nothing that they did was ever beyond unimaginable and intolerable for this person. And so over time, you just start to tolerate more and more and more. And then you might get hidden in the background and put underneath this giant kind of spell that locks you in a box. And before you know it, you stop doing your hobbies, you stop hanging around with the people that you around with because your partner doesn't allow it. The controlling, the manipulative, all of these behaviors start happening, and then
Mm.
before you know it, you're 4 years into a relationship that you totally lost connection with yourself. So don't get fooled by these things. One of the indicators if that's happening is that I want to make sure that I say in closing in this episode is like, if you have someone that you're dating that is afraid to expose you into their deepest inner circle, that is a warning sign. That is a flag. And that is a flag that is honestly far too many people will not realize, like, well, why don't you want to share me on your social media? Or why don't you want to, you know, acknowledge that like I haven't met your parents or that I haven't even met your friends, or like we can't even go on a date without it being out of town that you live on. Like those are some things, some flags that can really show you what
Mm,
you might not want to see when you are experiencing that halo effect, which is just another cognitive bias. So
yeah.
don't be a fool. Don't get fooled by these types of people, and acknowledge the red flags as they come. And if you're
Yeah.
struggling to do that, that's where someone in your life who can hold you accountable can be sometimes a lifesaver.
Maybe that's where the You Do You program can come in. You can have a
Truth.
coach or your therapist of choice help you understanding, is this a red flag, or is this, maybe this one actually is my insecurity. So
Mhm.
if that's something you're interested in, down in the DMs or go to evolveventurestech.com/therapy. All the information is there.
Mm.
Episode suggestion before we wrap up.
275 Motivation Monday: How to Stop Apologizing for Who You Are. Bianca?
Mm. 271, how the people around you impact your brain. All right, everybody, go crush
Hell
your
yeah.
week. Happy April. Happy spring. You know I'm happy as a clam. We will see you next time. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.